Hi, everybody, and we are talking right now with Donna Sicilian, who's a friend of mine. We go to church together.
Yes,
Good to
we
see
do.
you, Donna.
Good
But
to see you, Al.
She's also Executive Director of Student Services.
Yes.
Well, gosh, where do we almost begin? It has just been an unbelievable year. There are new challenges. And some people will say, well, finally, maybe we're going to address the mental health issues which seem to be plaguing some of our schools and seem to be one of the root causes for all the gun violence we've been seeing. So, I mean, where do you even begin?
Well, I would begin by saying in Pinellas County Schools, we have been addressing students' mental health problems for decades.
Sure.
Our district's been committed to identifying kids that are struggling, providing services that we can provide at school, and then referring families to additional resources in our community when they need them.
So specifically, what services do you provide?
Well, we have student service staff that includes psychologists, social workers, counselors, nurses, and prevention staff.
I would imagine this is a real team effort where you sit down and if you identify a student that may be having some problems, you all sit down and try to come up with some course of action?
Correct. But we really try to start even before that with mental health wellness, because just like you don't want to wait until you're having physical illness symptoms, you don't want to wait until you start having mental and emotional related symptoms as well. So there are things we can do as adults and things we can help children do that promote mental health wellness.
Like, give me some examples.
Sure. We can help them with learning how to express their emotions. We can help them through the grief and trauma of life that happens, rather than them not having, we teach them the skills on how to deal with these things so that when issues occur, as we know they always will, that they know how to manage what's happening with them, how to appropriately express their feelings, not either stuff their feelings or become enraged and act out behaviorally. We try to help build resiliency. We know there are all sorts of things like being connected to family, having relationships with adults, having strong peer relationships that we know help build resiliency in children and in adults, so that when the things of life happen, you know, you kind of look at why does one student really kind of come apart at the seams when something occurs and another student seems able to manage it. It's really what is their point of mental health wellness at the time that the event happens in their life.
Now, you know, I'm gonna share a little personal thing. You know, my parents got divorced when I was very young.
I do remember
and,
that.
I got picked on a lot because I was in a small town, and believe it or not, back then there weren't a lot of divorced couples. And I mean, I was picked on relentlessly because when they had Valentine's Day, when the moms came in, God bless my dad, he showed up with all the moms, why is your dad here, and stuff like that. Divorce is much more common these days, but the trauma from divorce is not. So specifically, how do you identify those kids, and is there something you can do to help them?
Sure, yes, there's always something we can do to help. We can help in the schools, and when it kind of moves beyond the support that we're able to provide during the school day, we have, in Pinellas County, we have a lot of resources that we can refer them to. But one of the things I would mention that's very important is that the adults in the children's life let the school know what's happening. Sometimes, you know, there's always concern about, you know, not wanting to appear a certain way, or like we all want to appear as if, you know, we have this perfect life. But everybody's struggling with something. So if the adults will let the school counselor know that, you know, we're in the process of a divorce, or the grandparent just died, or we've had to move 3 times in the last year, that helps us because then we can identify and go in early and provide support to the child, as opposed to if all of a sudden the child starts acting out and we start asking the adults, well, what, you know, ask the family, what's going on? They say, oh, this happened, we're in the process of a divorce. And then, you know, knowing that sooner, we can get in there and kind of provide supports. Because there is no shame. There's a lot of stigma with mental health still.
Yeah, I know,
and we really work hard to bust that through. You know, parents don't seem to have a lot of concern to let us know, for example, if their child's suffering with diabetes. They'll tell us right away. We'll be able to kind of monitor what the kid's eating for lunch. Are they getting the right amount of insulin? But people are a little more hesitant to say, you know, my daughter's struggling with anxiety. just because of that stigma in our society. But it's equally important for families to let us know what kids are bringing in the door with them.
And you just said it there. So I know you can't break it into percentages, but I'm thinking of the mental challenges that these children face. What do you say? 80% of them are generated at home, and maybe 20% in school, or is that kind of where it fits?
I think if we look at a child's life, we could say that depending on where the trauma, for example, is occurring, if things are happening at home, it always spills over into the school. If things are happening in a community, it always spills over into the school. School itself does generate some anxiety with students.
Yeah.
But if you look at, you have two students, say they're in an academically rigorous program, why do we have one student who maybe is really struggling with a lot of stress and anxiety, maybe develops eating disorders, whatever may occur from that, and another student who seems able to manage the stress a little better?
Or even as our kids, they thrived on it.
Correct, yes, your children definitely.
Which is a weird thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, bring it on, bring it on.
But that's a sign of mental health.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was saying earlier that we want to kind of get in with students earlier that need that extra support. So I think to answer your question, it kind of goes both ways. We bring things from school into home, and we bring things from home into school.
Let's take it a step further.
Sure.
How can you assure parents that once a child is identified with having, I'm calling them mental health challenges, because I think it's an easier way to put it, that mental health challenge, in quotes, label, doesn't stick with that child on and on and on, so by the time they go to junior high and go, oh, well, this kid's had problems since first grade.
Mm-hmm. No, we don't label kids, we don't diagnose kids in the school system.
Okay.
But what we do is we just try to get an assessment of what kinds of things is the child dealing with and how can we be supportive so that they're able to learn. And that's really always our goal in a school system, even with the psychologists, social workers, counselors, and nurses. Mm-hmm. We are here not to diagnose and necessarily treat, but to support the student so that they are ready to learn, so that they can be prepared for their academics. And anything that the child may need beyond that, we would talk to the family and maybe make recommendations for services in the community, but it always is up to the parents.
So as if you didn't have enough challenges, then along comes the Parkland shooting, which just, for all of us, we just sit here and it just breaks our heart in half. Mm-hmm. Now you've got that on the table. And I'm sure that there are some kids that come to school that are thinking in the back of their heads, could we be next? Especially when they go through these active shooter drills, which you need to do so kids know how to properly react. But how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, I think we all think that, the adults and the children coming to school. I think we have to talk about it, acknowledge that it sadly is a reality across the country, not just in Florida. We have to be prepared, but we also have to reassure students that they are safe. We are initiating the Sandy Hook Promise program here in Pinellas County Schools. And so this is a program that has a continuum of training for students and adults, family and community, to help identify the signs of violence and help get people support and help. And there's also an anonymous reporting app that will be available.
Oh, okay.
So one of the things that the people from Sandy Hook that came down and trained us taught us is that you actually have a better chance statistically of hitting lotto and winning millions of dollars than you have being involved in a school shooting. Now, it does happen. People do win lotto, and school shootings do occur. So as you said, we have to do the active shooter training. We need to be prepared. But really, the odds are that is not going to be what you encounter. We have far more people that are, far more students and adults that are dying by suicide, attempting suicide and dying, which is a form of violence against yourself.
Yeah.
So we do need to be prepared, but we need to couch that in the reality of we really can reassure people school is still the safest place to be.
Right. Now, one of the things that whenever there is tragedy tragedy within a school or anybody else, people getting killed, people dying in car accidents, they always say, well, you know, counselors are available if anybody needs it. Do people respond to that kind of, or they just kind of go, well, it's a sign of weakness if I need to talk to somebody, or do they really respond?
They do respond. It varies, but our team really is those people that when they say counselors are available, that's us. We go out there and provide crisis support to schools and to the community when needed. We sent a team down to Parkland, and they were there for 3 weeks supporting that community and the MSD High. But people vary in their responses. Again, have they learned, have they been taught that it's not a sign of weakness, that it's a sign of strength and health to actually ask for support, to talk about their feelings. So that's why it's so important that we teach the children and the adults that this is how you maintain your mental health. This is how you maintain your strength and integrity by talking about it, by seeking help.
Now, does bullying fit into that? Or I know you have an office that's all they do, but is that part of the mental health picture?
Correct, yes. Bullying prevention is in our prevention department. That's part of student services. We've actually expanded. We've used some of the recent funding to expand our bullying prevention and intervention services because we are seeing more and more of that. Part of that, I believe, is because of social media. You know, when you and I were in school, Al, we might pass a note about, well, neither one of us would do it, but somebody might pass a note back and forth about another kid.
Oh, yeah.
But now when that happens, it's not just you, me, and whoever we pass it to. It's like thousands and thousands of people, and they kind of jump on it. There's an anonymity to the bullier. They can be aggressive without identifying themselves. So it's just kind of taken this whole mean girl, mean guy to a new level, and it is devastating for kids.
Now the process, if a parent thinks that there's something going on, what's the chain of command? Teacher, principal, then to you, or what?
No, anyone at the school they can reach out to. They can tell the teacher, they can talk to the principal. We have a reporting site. There's an app. It's called Anonymous Alerts. It's also on our district website, right on the front page.
Okay.
So if you want to put it in writing or even report anonymously, because sometimes children will say, no, don't tell, it'll only get me in more trouble. So we do have an anonymous reporting site for bullying as well. And every single incident that's reported, either verbally, through the app, by a phone call, email, or on the website, we do follow up with in a timely manner. And so even those cases where we say this is conflict, not bullying, because there is a difference.
Oh, sure, yeah.
We still develop a safety plan and make sure that all the parties involved feel safe, because you need to feel safe at school.
Yeah, well, you got that right. Well, I know your department, all your folks work so darn hard and with all these new challenges. So you're doing a great job, Donna. Keep it up.
Thank you, Al.
All right, we're back with more after this, so please stay with us here on the PCS Journal.